Welcome back to Sunday Supplement and welcome back to our guests Jonathan Northcroft, Craig Hope and Jonathan Liew. Jonathan, let's start with you because we're going to talk about Tottenham Hotspur against Manchester United. Quiet game you were attending there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It is, though, 5 games unbeaten for Manchester United. We seem to lurch between one or the other. Corner turned or just green shoots of recovery that you saw there?
Yeah, it was a challenging game to report on, by the way. I think I deleted 2 intros before coming up with a third one within about 2 minutes. I've been pretty sceptical about Ruben Amorim and the rain, but I have to say I think in the last month or so there has been clear improvement, and I felt yesterday was part of that. It was, of course, a position that they a winning position that they squandered, and Amorim talked about that afterwards. He said we've got to get more ruthless as a team. We've got to sort of smell when an opposition's vulnerable, and he talked about the stadium and Spurs were there for the taking, and that's actually good that he's showing that ambition. He was more disappointed having got the last minute goal than Thomas Frank was having conceded it. I think there's more resilience. The lines are a bit closer, there's less spaces that opponents are finding against United. Just the quality of Mbeumo makes a difference. He was a bit, different class to Kolo Muani for Spurs. And it was progress, but you have to then remind yourself this is still Manchester United and we're talking about 5 games without defeat being, whoa, that's amazing. Yeah. And clearly the club's got to get to a point that's way beyond that, but it's the beginnings of something, I think.
Yeah, and on Amorim, the last time I was sat in this seat, I think uttered the words, Manchester United will always have enough good players to keep bad managers in a job, and thankfully you guys clipped that up and put it on your socials, and Manchester United then won 3 on the spin. So
is that your hands off Eddie Howe kind of thing?
But didn't that almost prove my point? The fact that I did sit here and say they've got good players, they've got Cunha, they've got Mbeumo, they've got Bruno Fernandes. They then went 5 unbeaten. That talks to that point, but yesterday we saw what Manchester United are under Amorim. In a year, has there really been any great progress with identity? I don't think there has been. The summer recruitment was good. Of all the players, and there was a lot of Premier League to Premier League transfers this summer because of PSR, we're seeing more of that now, whereas we didn't 5 or 10 years ago. I think Bryan Mbeumo, out of all of them, was perhaps the best, and yesterday he carried Manchester United again, but under Amorim, I don't see yet what they are really trying to be. He knows what he wants them to be. He's absolutely wedded to this system and this identity and the strategy, but I don't really see it on the pitch. And as I touched on at the top of the show there, this felt like a draw where both teams lost.
Jonathan,
I think I do see. I see what he's trying to do, and obviously, he's not fully executed it yet, and the inconsistency is still a maddening problem. I think I do see what he's trying to do. I think what he's recognised, Amorim, is that United are not. They don't currently have the midfield to be able to control games the way he would like. And the 3-4-2-1 system. If you can't control midfield, if you don't have the personnel who can control midfield, you are playing basketball. And packing that front three with the talent, with individual players who can create who can create chances out of nothing. I think that's what we've seen from them. We've seen a lot of late goals. We've seen a lot of kind of streaky goals, and obviously a huge amount of leaks in the defence. That they're still really brittle at the back. And that's something we already kind of knew about them. But and obviously the consistency is not there. But I think I kind of see what he's trying to do, even though he hasn't really properly executed it yet.
Well, you mentioned what United are like just now, games of basketball. If you look at the Mail on Sunday, Riyadh Al Samurai was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as well. The headline is, "This was Amorim's United in a nutshell, utter chaos." United extended their unbeaten run to 5, Jonathan, but it still felt like light accounting. For now, United will have to settle for lesser symbols of progress. That said, even if we talk about utter chaos, you could almost relate that to the league as well, because aside of Arsenal, who we've been talking about, United are 2 points off second.
Yeah.
Is this a unique opportunity potentially that the Champions League might not be out of sight for Manchester United, even though we're talking about United that hasn't settled, that hasn't really shown enough so far this season?
Look, I think it's in play for a lot of clubs because it actually looks like the Championship table at the moment, doesn't it? With so many teams separated by 1 or 2 points near the top. Whether United will have that consistency over the long term, I'm not sure. I don't think there's enough chaos about Manchester United. Not too much. You know, I think they need, going forward, to loosen up a little bit out of this quite rigid system. Which John's right about the fact they're trying to almost not win games the traditional United way by controlling the match. They're trying to. It's a much more direct style of play because of the formation. I think they need a bit more creativity going forward. But I just think that the recruitment maybe is the biggest thing that's helped them at the moment. Like the goalkeeper, finally they've got a keeper. He kept them in the game, and that's
unbeaten since he's been there.
Unbeaten since he's been there. And, I mean, that's actually a novelty for United, having a reliable goalkeeper in recent years. And then, as I say, Mbeumo, Cunha didn't have his best game, but he was asked to play number 9, which isn't his position, but he still affected it. And it's that thing that Ralph Rangnick talked about, you know, the open heart surgery. It's a club that did need a lot of work on it, and it's going to be transfer window after transfer window. And I suppose, I know, Craig, you're saying you don't see what's happening under Amorim. I'd have said exactly the same a couple of weeks ago. The last couple of weeks have just given me enough to think, okay, there is finally a year on. Finally, I think there's just bits of improvement that you could stick with him a bit longer.
Is that not just good players playing well, though? Is that just Bryan Mbeumo papering over the cracks? And I actually think Manchester United's recruitment in the summer was good, but it wasn't good enough to the point whereby the opportunity is there for a team who finished 16th last year to gate crash the top 4 this season. I think the Premier League, Jonathan touched on it earlier, the days of the top 2 or 3 running away with records, points, totals, that is gone. The Premier League is good. You know, at tea time yesterday, I looked at the table, there was 7 points separating 13th and 2nd. Yeah. You know, all you've got to do is string a couple of wins together, and Manchester United are there to a point. I think the one signing that is really going to come back and haunt them. Ruben Amorim's spoken about some frailties at the back there, but goals can paper over the cracks. The 2/3 of the way there. And Mbeumo and Cunha are fantastic. They've got Benjamin Sesko terribly wrong. I was watching the game with one of my little boys yesterday, and Sesko went through on goal in the moment before he was injured. And one of my boys remarked, it was a tremendous camera angle. It had him coming face on. He said, he doesn't look like he wants to score. And myself and Jonathan spoke about this earlier. There isn't that belief there. There isn't that nastiness. There isn't that hunger. There's something about his body language that just screams insecure, unsettled, lacking in confidence. And when he went off injured, now, I hope he's okay. I couldn't really identify the point at which he did get injured, and we hope it isn't serious. Ruben Amorim spoke afterwards like it might be. But even before that, he didn't look like a player who fancied the fight, and he hasn't in any of his games so far. If they'd have spent that £70-80 million on a proper centre forward, given what else they've got there, we could have been talking about a team who could finish top 4, top 3.
Like Voltemade.
Well, we'll get on to him. Yeah.
It is early, though, isn't it? Is it too early to judge?
I think Sesko is not. I mean, I think he's looked like short of confidence. He looked really short of confidence yesterday. I think the issue with Sesko is that at Leipzig, he was a player who, with his pace and his movement, he would try and avoid contact. As a striker, you either relish the contact. You're either a Kane or a Drogba or a Haaland who tries to win the contact, or you use your pace and movement to avoid the contact and get into unconventional positions. Sesko is a 6'3" striker with pace and movement, but I think he's being forced into a role where he is being made he's being put into contact again and again, and it's not really his natural game. So you see the incident where he got. I think that's where he got injured, where Van der Ven is, and he you can see he's not bracing himself for the contact. Either he's not expecting it, or he doesn't want it. But I think his instincts are to get away and not to brace himself and to get the finish away. And I think that is part of the slight kind of discrepancy into the role that he's been forced into and the kind of striker he actually naturally is.
My biggest concern is the charisma. You touched on Voltemade there. Nick Voltemade has come in not dissimilar circumstances, £70 million from the Bundesliga. And Voltemade has been put into a team that doesn't really suit him right now. When you speak about the role Sesko has been asked to do there, Voltemade, it's not perfect for him at Newcastle, but he's worn the shirt with character, with charisma. He's taken on that challenge. It's not perfect, but that is my concern about Sesko. I don't see that within himself.
I think that's club culture. I think that's prevailing culture rather than any kind of personal failing. I think if Voltemade goes into this United team, I think he struggles in the same way.
Well, like every centre forward before, right. Højlund, you go back through all them. Sesko now just almost looks like Rasmus Højlund Mark II, potentially, how it could play out.
We talked about the injury. The Sun mentions that it could be a major injury scare for Amorim, and it may force him to go into the market in January. It's always a dangerous time to go into a transfer window, though, isn't it? Particularly for a position like that.
Particularly for strikers, it's a very expensive time to go into the market. I was in the press conference, and Amorim, he was leaving the room as he was asked about Sesko's knee, so he didn't have time to give a full answer, and he just said, "I'm worried," because when it's a knee, it could be anything. He also was quite open to the suggestion that they might buy him some more midfielders, which I think is as much, if not more, pressing for them. And of course, the issue they've got with strikers is that the time that they would need another one is actually December, when Mbeumo and Ahmad go to the Cup of Nations, so they might be short of goals at that point. But I think midfield, longer term for United, and I've thought this for years, substandard in midfield.
Jonathan, there was another team there, of course, in Tottenham Hotspur, and there has been a narrative building, a somewhat negative narrative building around Thomas Frank, particularly last weekend with the XG, now famous 0.05 against Chelsea. In Jonathan's piece, he says they were 2-1 up and had 11 v 10 and only a minute of stoppage time remained, but just like the reign of Thomas Frank, still they wait for liftoff. If they hadn't conceded that goal, it could have been a major turning point in his time there, couldn't it?
Well, I think it certainly would have changed the feelings and the emotions and the vibes around the place. But I don't think it would have addressed any of the underlying issues. Look, Frank started badly at Brøndby. I think he lost 8 of his first 10 or something like at Brentford. This is not a coach who comes in with a cattle prod and magic dust and almost sort of scares everyone into alignment. He has a look around. He tries to form personal relationships. He tries to fight fires. He has a look around the place. The issue is that at Spurs the expectations are hugely more elevated than they were anywhere that he's been in his career. There is an expectation, I think, and rightly so, that Spurs should be trying to win these sorts of games. I mean, I thought the Chelsea game was a huge tell. You can lose those games, right? But if you don't show the ambition, if you don't show the character to even look like you want to win those games, I think that's a huge issue. And I think Frank is, the league position flatters them a little bit. I think in terms of the XG, they are overperforming in terms of goals scored and underperforming in terms of goals conceded. I think that is beginning to bite them now. So I think that's a huge issue, because again, where are the goals coming from? Where is the solidity? I don't see a huge amount of cohesion.
Big injuries, though, haven't
they? They do, and that's the issue, because I think they would want to have integrated Xavi Simons a lot more gradually than in fact they've had to, and I think he's been thrown into a league where he's still trying to adapt, and I think he's been exposed a little bit in that respect. Solanke, Maddison, Kulusevski, these are huge players that they're missing, and big characters, and in their absence, I don't think Frank quite has enough of a I don't think he has got quite enough authority and personality to bridge that gap himself.
I think a lot of it comes back to, as well, just the players available to him. There are these sky-high expectations at Tottenham and this want to play a certain way, the Tottenham way. But you look at the personnel they had on the pitch yesterday: Richarlison, Kolo Muani, Brennan Johnson. They brought in Kudus from West Ham, who started well, but has almost reverted to the numbers he produced at West Ham. Has he not got the players to do what he wants to do? And I was out in the Far East in the summer and had a bit of time with Thomas Frank. I can still taste the warm beer now that we had in Seoul. It was sweltering, yeah. Even the big fan next to us was wheezing. It was that hot. But Thomas Frank was the picture of cool, and I really enjoyed having the best part of an hour with him on and off the record. And he's a pragmatist. He doesn't want to play this way. He will play as it suits him, like he did at Brentford. He's not a man wedded to his style. But at the moment, I just think he's struggling personnel-wise to play the way supporters want him to play. But on the back of that, 2 weeks ago, we're speaking about Tottenham being the best away team in the country. But also, the Premier League is good. It's okay to draw a game or lose a game. We've already touched on that with the table being concertina. I think Frank's okay, and he's had a rough ride the last couple of weeks, but yeah.
Is that not the issue, though? It's the style thing, it's a pragmatism thing. And I admire Thomas Frank. I think he's intelligent, he's strategic, he's overperformed wildly at Brentford, and a guy you love listening to, palpably a good person, connects with his players, as John said. But he is a pragmatic coach. And there is this style thing at Tottenham, and it might be a vague thing. It might be a bit like the West Ham way, and there's a parallel there. But the booing happened yesterday when Xavi Simons was taken off, because he was the one player that Tottenham had that really looks like a Spurs player, gets on the ball, turns, wants to create. Everything else is a bit functional. And I think Thomas Frank's got to flex his game and his approach, because when you look at the history of Tottenham coaches, the pragmatists haven't been accepted. Nuno wasn't accepted, Conte wasn't really accepted, Jose wasn't really accepted, and yet they love the Martin Yoles and the Harry Redknapps.
In his defence, I would say he's a pragmatist to the point of not a pragmatist in that he plays sort of conservative football. He will use what he's got. You look at Brentford, they had the front three at times of Wissa, Tony and Mbeumo. They were an exciting team to watch who played on the break. But if he wants to give supporters what they want, play Simons and Odobert, who came on yesterday, was fantastic.
Yeah.